Talk about reckless. Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. The Trump administration's immigration raids are intensifying.
Federal agents have been spotted in many sanctuary cities carrying out these operations.
Leadership has told agents to increase their arrest of undocumented immigrants to 1,200 to 1,500 per day nationwide. One source calling it a quota.
And the effort to meet the deportation quotas, combined with instances of racial profiling, has led to this. Trump's extreme immigration raids now sweeping up Native Americans. Quote, at least 15 Native people in New Mexico and Arizona have reported that they've been stopped, questioned, or detained by federal law enforcement officials during immigration roundup efforts since Wednesday, according to Navajo Nation officials. They were asked to provide proof of citizenship, despite being indigenous to the United States.
This has been an issue that's been ongoing for a long time. I mean, we go all the way back to World War II. You know, a lot of our people were mistaken to be Japanese. So I think making sure that there is education and awareness, especially with, again, these custom enforcement agents that are patrolling in areas that have a mixture of not just Latino population, but also Native American population.
Uneducated customs agents are just part of the problem. Agent ignorance is another. Quote, despite possessing certificates of Indian blood, SIBs, and state-issued IDs, several individuals have been detained or questioned by ICE agents who do not recognize these documents as valid proof of citizenship, the Navajo Nation Council stated in a press release. The ICE agents represent the U.S. federal government. You know, the same government that stole Native American lands and then forcibly moved the indigenous people onto reservations. Now, agents of the U.S. government are telling these people that evidence of their Native American blood is not proper documentation. It is beyond sickening and insulting. And yet, the sloppy nature of the Trump administration immigration raids could have been predicted. Donald Trump himself has been bombastic and unforgiving in his descriptions of efforts to deport undocumented migrants.
We are throwing them the hell out of our country. We have no apologies, and we're moving forward very fast.
And the speed doesn't seem to be leaving much time for investigation or precision.
After NBC News reported nearly half of undocumented immigrants arrested Sunday had no prior criminal record besides being in the country illegally, NBC's Peter Alexander asking the White House.
So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
If you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal.
So there it is. The Trump administration is not differentiating between peaceful undocumented migrants and violent undocumented migrants. Everybody who is in the United States without proper papers is subject to deportation. The Trump administration insists it's all about public safety. And yet FBI statistics show that migrant communities commit less violent crime per capita than communities of people born in the United States. But that discrepancy doesn't seem to matter to the Trump administration. The cost is also apparently of no concern. And the federal government's tab for deportations is exploding.
Two sources familiar with the process tell NBC News deporting one migrant runs around $10,500. Here in New York, city officials estimate it costs an average of $352 a night to house asylum seekers.
There are multiple reports that the Trump Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency is already in the red. Relatedly, Trump border czar Tom Homan has asked Congress to allocate to ICE $85 billion. That's more money than the entire annual budget for the U.S. Department of Justice.
From coast to coast, ICE agents going city to city, sometimes door to door.
Is a sloppy, wide-ranging, and costly deportation effort a congressional priority? Well, Republican leaders say they will try to pass the funding bill despite the money will add to the federal budget deficit. Congressional Democrats are calling the deportations outrageous.
Everyone can agree. Democrats, Republicans, I think all good people believe that if you're here, you're causing crimes, you're obviously doing harm to our country, to our people, you shouldn't be in this country. Everyone agrees with that. But that's not what this is. This is empowering ICE to go into our public schools, into our churches, into places where people should feel safe. And people are going to get swept up who are dreamers, who are just here working in our restaurants, taking care of our kids, working in our small businesses. And that, I think, should concern all of us. This is an inhumane approach and process that Donald Trump is putting out there. One, because he could care less about immigrants and the history of migrants in this country, but also because of the cruelty. He wants to put also a show on, as we've seen with his actions with Colombia, with tariffs. He wants this to be a spectacle.
The spectacles in the Trump administration keep coming. Most recently, the Trump White House announced a pause on all federal grants and loans. The announcement and the way it was delivered got a negative critique even on Donald Trump's favorite Fox show, Fox and Friends.
Yesterday, after this announcement happened, there was chaos and great confusion because a lot of states were trying to, they had issues accessing the funds for Medicaid, Head Start programs could not get funding and stuff like that. And so then they had to come out with a second email. I think it was from the Office of Management and Budget, essentially trying to clarify.
Took till 2 o'clock in the afternoon to do that.
To flush it out.
I think, communication is going to be the key. And they always say the first 2 months of an administration and the last 2 months are the most difficult.
The migrant deportations, though, are already becoming difficult for the U.S. economy. Just the fear of ICE raids have prompted migrant workers across the United States to avoid going to work. In California's Central Valley, which produces a quarter of the nation's fruits and vegetables, the sudden labor shortage is causing supply chain issues, and food prices are rising. Many Republicans, though, insist the economic fears are overblown.
Still think the case for total economic collapse, if we have some deportation, is totally overstated. I mean, it's obvious the priority is violent criminals, and the second priority is people with existing deportation orders. I think that's the vast majority of what's going to go on, for the next couple of years, and I don't think that's going to have any impact on the economy at all.
No impact on the economy? Well, a lot of economists disagree. And there is a larger issue here. America's moral standing is dropping fast. Instead of serving as a beacon of freedom, fairness, and justice, the United States once again represents aggression and bigotry. And it's not just because of the imprecise and reckless ICE raids. Last week, President Trump delivered another insult to Native Americans by renaming Alaska's Mount Denali Mount McKinley. Denali is the native Athabascan word meaning great one that Athabascans have called the mountain for thousands of years. Just over 130 years ago, white miners working in Alaska decided to name the mountain for then presidential candidate William McKinley, even though McKinley had never been to Alaska, and he would never go. 10 years ago, with the encouragement of Democrats and Republicans in Alaska, President Barack Obama renamed the Alaska mountain Denali as a tribute to indigenous people. But President Trump, who has long denigrated President Obama, has now decided to reverse the mountain name again to McKinley. Alaska's two Republican senators got wind of this plan a few weeks ago and urged Donald Trump not to follow through. But Trump did it anyway. The unmistakable message from Donald Trump is that indigenous Americans, including Native Alaskans, do not matter, at least to him. And that insult has now been reinforced through the ridiculous ICE detentions of Native Americans in several U.S. states. Let's be clear, Native Americans are more American than Donald Trump, and they deserve better than Trump's buffoonery and racism. Everybody in the United States deserves better, even undocumented migrants. Unfortunately, the Trump administration's immigration raids continue to be dehumanizing and are making America less safe, more unstable, and more shameful. By the way, Donald Trump has already presided over another record stock market loss.
Tonight, the biggest single-day loss for a stock ever. Shares of Nvidia, which makes the chips used to power artificial intelligence, plunging nearly $600 billion.
The crash comes after Donald Trump's tech bros in Silicon Valley came up short in the race to develop artificial intelligence. That wasn't supposed to happen under Donald Trump. Oops.
DeepSeek, the app, tonight #1 in both Apple and Google's app stores. Built in China, allegedly at a fraction of the cost, using far less energy than Western competitors like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic.
Some of the CEOs of those U.S. tech companies received a front row seat at Donald Trump's inauguration. Trump named OpenAI's Sam Altman to the new Trump AI initiative called Stargate. Check out that story at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Peter, who wrote, Never trust a guy who keeps going bankrupt to manage your finances, investments. He's going to lose your money. Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about ICE detaining Native Americans as the Trump deportation rates go off the rails. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.